it wasn't really much of a conversation for me to come in and work here in the first place.
You kind of just told me, like, hey,
yeah, I just kind of told
I'm gonna
him.
come in, I'm gonna try and help, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So at that time, Cole was in the field, working all day in the field, still trying to answer the phone.
Yep.
And when he got done for the day, he was trying to remember everything that he did, kind of schedule, and then actually get it on the schedules, take care of the payments and all of the office work that way. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Duty Calls.
Duty Calls, we're back.
Or Family Feud this week.
Family Feud, yes. So we wanted to talk. We get asked a lot. How do we do it in terms of working together, but also being married? I know your parents said that they could never do that.
I mean, a lot of people do.
Yeah. So we kind of wanted to talk about how we do it, how it's affected us, how it's maybe caused some conflict, maybe been better in certain ways. So we think this video is going to be valuable. Kind of give a little bit more insight on who we are as individuals and how we do things. So
okay.
I guess to start it off, I'll ask you what we've had a bunch of issues when it comes to working together and work-life balance and things like that. So what would you say was initially, because we weren't married when you started here.
We weren't even engaged.
Quite yet. Yeah. We'd been together for 5 years, 6 years leading up to that point in terms of dating. But anyways, so what would you say was the biggest issue or change when we first started working together?
I would say like the very beginning, I think it was expectations.
Okay.
I mean, I came from a previous job when I was doing kind of the same thing. I was front desk doing the scheduling, accepting payments, things like that. I was the first person people saw. Receptionist work, anyways. So, and then when I came here, it was an industry that really I didn't know a whole lot about, just beyond the things that you would talk about at home or whatever. So, I think that was kind of difficult. As far as the expectation goes, I don't think I caught on as quickly as you had hoped at that time. Partly because I didn't know much about the industry, and when people call us, they're expecting us to be able to answer their questions, and at that time I couldn't really. So I think it was managing those expectations a little bit. I know it wasn't really much of a conversation for me to come in and work here in the first place.
You kind of just told me, like, hey,
yeah, I just kind of told him.
I'm going to come in, I'm going to try and help. And
so at that time, Cole was in the field, working all day in the field, still trying to answer the phone. And when he got done for the day, he was trying to remember everything that he did, kind of schedule, and then actually get it on the schedules, take care of the payments and all of the office work that way. Which, was kind of weighing on him at a certain point. And then I basically told him one day, I'm going to give my previous employers like a month notice. I'll help train whoever we need to train, and then I'll come in and just kind of take over. So it was just expectations of me catching on quickly with somewhat of a reception background, but not an industry background. And then I think it was letting go a little bit of that control that you had from being involved in doing everything to this is now your new role. I think.
And to kind of provide some context to that. So you told me, like, hey, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna try and help.
Do you like it?
Kind of. I wasn't given much of a choice, but it obviously it's worked out great. It's provided a lot of ability for us to move forward and progress as a company. So I don't regret it by any means. I'm very, very thankful that I've got you. But to provide some context to what you said as expectations. So you adjusted you on the expectations that maybe I had on how you would adapt to those, is what you're suggesting?
Well, I know we used to have arguments about it a lot, because I had like not even half a day of training with Cole.
That was part of the context that I was going.
Partly because he had a lot of things that he still had to get done. And I was just kind of along for the ride at that point. But think it really just came down to he had unknown expectations that he didn't really know that he had until I came in. So
Yeah.
he didn't really know how to like voice those to me. So I wasn't really meeting those expectations or requirements, I guess, at that time because he didn't really know he had them for me yet.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
and we've had that conversation many times,
Yeah.
about that. And it took a while for me to realize that was what was going on. Thankfully, we were able to come to that conclusion, and then based on that conclusion, we were able to find a solution for it.
Yes.
Which was a lot. It took a while, and there was a lot of conversation associated with it, and some conflict, of course. But yeah, so when you came in, I would really say that, I mean, obviously, the position that you took over was, already there in a sense, but it wasn't a formal position that we had within the company. And
right.
me being as young and as inexperienced as I was with, hiring and delegating and training and things like that. So I was definitely in a unique situation when it came to that. And I kind of just had to, figure it out. I want to say wing it a little bit. And so that's probably what resulted in your non-existent training, and it was, you also were winging it, but I had certain, from doing it so long and kind of knowing a lot more about the industry, and how to handle different situations over the phone, or when it came to book work or things like that. I had those expectations that, this is how I do it, so this is how it needs to get done. And you were doing it your own way because you were finding your own way to do it, because there wasn't that kind of training. I kind of showed you half-heartedly, how,
like, this is QuickBooks, here you go.
Yeah, basically. So this is how we schedule a job. But then there's a lot of other things that we have to do in the office internally as a company, that I didn't cover. So I would say, had to, after we came to that conclusion, it took a very long time, but after we came to the conclusion that, I had these unknown expectations, the biggest, result in kind of, I want to say, fixing or moving past that, was realizing that I had these unknown expectations, and then, figuring out a way to where I could check myself to make sure that I'm not, I'm putting you or whoever in the best position possible. So I mean, that's kind of what we came to as a solution for it.
I mean, basically agreements, I guess, instead of expectations. There were more agreements. Like,
I can't expect you to do something that you don't know how to do, or I can't expect you to do something a certain way that you've never done, or I've never showed you, or somebody's never showed you. So
and it was more like of an agreement of, I'm going to, or we need to sit down together, learn from each other, essentially.
Yeah.
And, if he's got a better way to do something, then we have an agreement to listen to each other and kind of work through those. Just like if I have a different way, maybe not so much better, we can come to that conclusion as well, which is really what it came down to, is just making agreements to really work with each other, not against each other, which we never really meant to do.
No, it was not intentional at
again,
all.
it came from a place that I am new in an industry that I didn't really know anything about, and he came from a place where he was handling everything. So
and trying to figure out how to
delegate
it effectively, to where, we're managing workload now between two people, one person with very minimal experience, meaning you, and we've had to carry that forward and continually progress on that as we've hired and as we've grown as a company in terms of personnel here. So that experience, honestly, was probably it would have had to have happened at some point or another.
Beneficial,
but it was
at
beneficial
the time of when it happened.
Yes, very much so. And then to touch again on those agreements, those were absolutely, massive, and we've tried to utilize those both work wise, and personally, and with, other people here within the company. We were, kind of put on the agreements a few years ago, and I would say that, the agreements, managing agreements rather than expectations, it gives it a clear, cut and dry, this is what is expected to be done, can you agree to do that? And once you agree to do it, then it's no longer an expectation.
Well,
two parties are saying, we will do this, this is the result that we're going to get. But then it allows, for somebody like me, it allows me to step back, and as long as the objective is getting done,
right,
how it's getting done, as long as we're not, I would say how it's getting done is less important or less relevant to the overall finished product. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
No,
honestly.
I mean, I think so. I mean, it also helps everyone come from a place of understanding. I mean, you're gonna get people, like, if I were to just be like, hey, you need to start doing this thing, I need you to start doing this thing, can you do this thing?
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a reasoning of why it's going to be beneficial,
why I need to do
why
it,
we need to do it, why it's going to help
mm-hmm.
you and your position.
Sure.
So that's kind of
another
thing. Then again, it establishes that form of communication where if we do have an idea of something that needs to be done,
mm-hmm.
Without expecting it, you can communicate that to the other person.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and the agreements come down, like, say work time starts at 8 a.m. Mm-hmm. and somebody's late. Well, as an employer, you expect them to be there on time or early.
Right.
Okay. Generally speaking, that's how most things go. Obviously, there are various circumstances where that may not be possible, sure. But it's generally expected to that as an employee, you're going to show up on time. And I know we had this issue early on, but as an employee, you expect the employee to show up on time. Mm-hmm. So instead of just expecting it to happen and then them being late for whatever reason, mm-hmm. If you have an agreement, hey, I've noticed that you've been late. Have this conversation mm-hmm. between the two parties. I've noticed you've been late. What's going on? What can I do as your employer to make sure that you can get here on time?
What can you do as the employee?
What can you do as the employee to make sure that you're getting here on time? And then can we agree to doing those things?
And
so
to
it's a two-party and to communicate, yes.
Yeah, if something is going to change, if right up front, like, hey, you have
a doctor's appointment, you have
to drop your kid off to school or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as from the agreement perspective, and like I said, we use this personally and business-wise. From the agreement perspective, it takes away me thinking something needs to get done in a certain way or at a certain time, mm-hmm. and focuses more on, it puts more emphasis on the communication side and on what both parties are responsible for. Because I can't expect you to get something done if you don't know what to do. Yeah. And I think initially, going back to it, that was the biggest issue. I was expecting certain things to get done or things to get done a certain way, but you did not have you didn't have the experience or the training or the know-how up front to do those. Mm-hmm. And so when they weren't getting done or getting done differently than what I expected them to be getting done, mm-hmm. That caused conflict. But since we have agreements, if you tell me I need you need me to do something, and I agree to doing that thing so that you can do something that you agree to do for me, sort of thing.
Yes.
It just works out better for everybody. I ramble a lot.
No, sorry. I was just thinking in my head, like, an agreement.
I probably messed that whole thing up.
You did. I don't think you did. No, I was thinking in my head, like, some videos have, like, a word count. It's like an agreement word count, like, up in the corner. Yeah. I'm sorry. Well, I mean, I don't know. I was just thinking about that.
Anyways, agreements over expectations. The expectations were the biggest conflict, and the agreements were the best solution. Agreements and communication were the best solution that we had initially. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
What about now? I know we still have conflict. I mean, we're not perfect by any means, so we still definitely have a lot of conflict.
Yes.
But it's not always based on expectations. What would you say is now?
I mean, I'd say now, which, I mean, I do think personally and from a professional aspect, we have fairly good communication.
Yeah.
But I would say right now the biggest thing is communication. All of us here, for the most part, are all in positions we haven't been before.
Yeah.
Our company, we're growing, and mm-hmm. we're trying to find ways to help all of our employees grow with us. So.
And we are changing certain things that maybe we've done in the past,
like
implementing new processes. Communication between individuals at the company and how we communicate with customers at the end and things like that. We're trying to improve all of those processes.
Right.
Which has caused a lot of questions, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of in a position where you haven't been before.
Yeah.
Where more so you were still an owner, you were still a manager, but more so you were more technician.
More hands on.
More hands
Yeah,
on.
I was out in the field 90% of the time.
And there's always that saying, you can't really work on your business if you're too busy working in it. So now you have transitioned more to
spending
working
more time,
on the business with strategic work, different processes like you mentioned before. How can we be more efficient? How can we offer better customer service? I'm in a position now where I'm managing someone else, because I'm no longer really taking care of the phone as much. I'm more back end marketing, financing, things like that. So, and then we have a couple other drivers here now that are now in management positions. So like learning all of our new roles and communicating our new roles with each other and things like that has been a little difficult. I know for you and I especially. I think sometimes we still kind of revert back to what we were comfortable with and what we were comfortable doing. But now
it's been a back and forth now
it's
for the last
finding
year
a balance.
So. And I would say that we incrementally get better, but then there are those times where it's not even like on a month to month basis, but it's like a specific situation where we used to handle it a certain way, but we haven't quite gotten to where we know how to handle it better
every time
now. And they're not always like problems. It's it's a scheduling thing, or it's a it's something totally new that we haven't experienced before, and so it's trying to think differently about how to attack whatever that is. Because I know we used to react a lot when a situation occurred, positive or negative. A situation would occur, and me being essentially at the time the sole decision maker, I was getting overloaded with phone calls from people in the field, or I myself was in the field, and I'm trying to remember everything we've got on the schedule at that time, what still needs to get done, what the future, the next day and 2 and 3 schedule looks like, and everything else that goes into it. And I would make a impulse, I want to say impulse, but I don't want to say impulse, but a decision at that time based on how it would affect the immediate, what was going on right then and now. Whereas now we're trying to transition to where we're making those decisions on maybe the root cause of why whatever happened, why it happened. And so we're looking to address the root cause or the root source of the situation. I don't because some of them are very positive situations. It's not all negative. It's not all negative. It sounds negative. It's not all negative stuff. But we're trying to address the root source of whatever the situation is, rather than just a reaction to like how it's going to affect us today and tomorrow. So and it's just a totally different way of trying to look at things and trying to handle things.
And
so there's a lot of unknowns.
To like the communication, like you mentioned before, you were kind of like the sole decision maker. But at this point in time, you've been able to communicate with all of the other people here, that you do trust their decisions and their ability to make decisions. So like having that communication and having that trust or backing for everybody here, I think has really helped as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be the only person that can or has to make a decision. We're trying to get to where we have multiple people at different levels doing different, doing the different things that we do here within the company, making the decisions that affect them the most, rather than it all filtering through and coming to a single person. Sometimes me or sometimes somebody else. But
well, and kind of off topic, not to throw anything off, but we called this Family Feud in the very beginning of the episode, and we kind of touched on that just between you and I. But there are other dynamics here that play a role in how we make decisions and how we do things. Like I know, you have your brother here, you work with your dad here, and in the very beginning, your grandma was here as well.
Yes.
So what would you say, has that gotten better, or what would you say were the problems in the very beginning?
There were some initial conflicts for sure. I kind of just threw myself in the middle of this. I wasn't I don't want to say I was invited, because I wasn't, but I just kind of threw myself in the middle of it. And really, looking back, it feels, from my perspective, it feels like I just kind of tried to grab the bull by the horns and go for a ride and try and control that bull. So I was a little hard-headed, very stubborn. when it came to trying to make decisions, trying to make improvements. I felt that I knew the best way to do things, whereas in reality, I had absolutely zero experience. I was, like I did say, I winged it a lot when it came to those kinds of decisions and stuff. And so that's where I think that default, which is reacting to a situation based on the immediate consequences or the immediate result that we'll get, um, that's where I default. So now we're trying to get out of that. I've realized that I really didn't know anything, and I, initially, like I said, there was a lot of conflict, um, and I had certain expectations from certain individuals that this is how things were going to work, and without the agreements and without the experiences that we've gained since then, that we've improved from what it was. I think overall relationships with my dad are very good, especially on a business and a personal aspect. Overall relationships really good with my brother. There's more conflict, I would say, with my brother as an active daily employee here, and that's mostly due to me managing expectations, having certain expectations, and setting like a certain standard myself because I know him, he's my family, things like that. And on the flip side to that, so maybe I hold like you or Jackson to a higher standard internally, subconsciously. I hold you guys to a higher standard.
Okay.
But on the flip side of that, it's I don't want to like nepotism sort of thing. That's not at all what I want to be shown or how I want to treat the situation. Being in a position of leadership, because like I still have to see you guys at family event. We go home together, sort of thing. And it's a balance act for me personally, and I really have to work on this a lot. From being too harsh to being too lenient, and finding that balance has been very difficult for me. I know at certain times I've been way too harsh, and at certain times I've been way too lenient, and because it's towards family more often than it's it looks it comes across as inconsistent to everyone else within the company, and I've really tried working on that. So
I do know that when you're talking about being like harsh and lenient, I know it's really easy anyways, like especially if there's a conflict, because I'm obviously a lot more comfortable
now
talking to you,
or
like if we're having a conflict, because we have that relationship, we're gonna be a lot more harsh on each other, more blunt
would be a better word.
We'll say things to each other that we would not dare say to another employee.
Member.
So that is something I think we've gotten better at. And it Cole and I are both very stubborn people as it is. We are both very hard-headed. And we both think we need the last word every time.
Yes.
So that does make things interesting. But I mean, when you do have that family dynamic there, it's a lot easier to probably go a little further than you should. I think with that person. But I mean, I will say, especially at least with us, and I've noticed with your brother too. Like it's been a lot better, I think.
And I think that a lot of that could go back to the expectation versus the agreement. We are managing a relationship, but expectations and agreements work very well not only in a business aspect but also in a personal aspect, whether it's relationships or a friend group or whatever. But being able to take that from a personal relationship to a business relationship, and essentially having two different sets of agreements, especially like for us, I know we have two different sets of agreements, one personally, one professionally, for I want to say outside family, brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, parents, things like that, grandparents. Those personal agreements are going to be a little bit different because you don't necessarily see that person every single day. Maybe you only see them at holidays, or you only see them, every couple weeks or whatever for short stints. But you may see them more often from a professional aspect in a professional environment. And so, those professional, you can't let either side, you cannot let
influence, really, I think.
You can't let something that happened professionally carry over into your personal life.
Influence your personal life.
Influence your personal life, yeah.
I know it's something that we struggled in the beginning. Because I'm very much a person that's like, I'm going to leave work at the door. Yeah. So when I'm at home, I'm clocked out, I'm done.
Yeah.
But he's very much the opposite. So it was a struggle for me to kind of like switch into that mode, like be ready for work-related work discussions, be ready to go to work, sometimes with those emergency calls that we get in.
I'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and start typing on my computer just because I woke up and had an idea. So
yeah, and for me it was difficult getting used to that because I know he did it before, but I guess I didn't really notice it as much as when I was in a different industry, different position. But I will say, I think it's been a lot better for a personal relationship and like professional relationship since I've been here, I think.
Yeah, so first issue and something we still work on would be the expectations over agreements. And then the second issue is working on that communication, which again we're still working on, and a lot of it can gone back to the agreements over expectations. And then just making a consistent everyday effort to, if something needs to change or if we can improve on it, communication across the board, across the company. But then you're saying that from that it's benefited us, is what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, let's jump into that. So we've definitely had a lot of benefits from working together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking back, I definitely wouldn't have it any other way. I think it's been a lot easier just because when I was at a different job, I didn't really know what was going on here. So if something good happened, something bad happened, whatever it was, I didn't really know what was going on. So then when I would come home from my job, it'd be like, hey, how was your day? What happened? Whatever. And at that point, it's not like he really wanted to explore it twice that day. But he would carry that weight positively or negatively with him, which, it's fine. A lot of us do it,
Yeah.
But I think being here, knowing what's going on, helping him manage that stress, doing it together as a team.
Yeah.
Instead of, I'm working solely on my profession, you're working solely on your profession. I think it's really helped us grow together.
Yeah, and I would say it's brought us closer to kind of summarize. It's brought us a lot closer together because we are on the same page in all aspects. Work is such a large part of our lives.
Yeah,
and so being on the same page when it comes to work allows us for better communication, more consistency from a day-to-day aspect, whether we're working, we're at home, we're on vacation, we're on a weekend where we're not exactly working but we're still involved with work in some aspect. It's just brought us closer together. So and I would say that's probably been the biggest, most notable benefit that we've experienced from it.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody. I know. I mean, it can push people apart for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in the very beginning when we were still trying to navigate what it was like working together, I feel like, I don't want to say we were pushed apart, but there was definitely more friction there than what there usually was.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, it helps that we're on the same page, and I think we've always made a pretty good team, and this kind of magnified that, I guess.
Yeah. To really summarize, when people ask how we do it, we work through a lot of problems, but to summarize how we do it, I would say the most important thing is consistent communication, so that we're on the same page all the time. So the agreements over expectations, that would be the two ways that we were able to make it work. And we enjoy each other's company. I mean, that's to start, but
we do spend a lot of time together. We live together, we work together. I mean, we hang out together.
As I say, we don't take a lot of time personally to each other, really.
Yeah, I mean, and
we haven't needed it though.
I mean, this has really helped. Like, it's for me. I mean, I've always appreciated you and what you did, but it helped me gain a new, different type of appreciation.
Yeah.
Because I really understood now why you did things a certain way, why you do what you do, how you do what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it really helped.
Yeah, and it was also another benefit that it provided, kind of going back, was it allowed me to transition in a leadership position. It allowed me to transition how I view the workplace as a whole. What the purpose of running a company is, and I would say I transitioned into looking at it from an employee growth perspective. I'm not here to just run a company and provide portable restrooms and pump septic tanks. That's not what the purpose of the company is. The purpose of the company is to provide growth trajectories for everyone that works here, so that they can better themselves. And having you here, obviously I want to see you do great. I want to see us do great. But it's also creating that kind of environment for the entire company. And so that's helped us. I'm trying, I want it to help everybody else here too. So that's kind of been one of the transitions that we've made, that I've made here, is it's not just about pumping septic tanks and renting portable restrooms. It's about how can we create a company that's sustainable when it comes to employee growth. How can we expand responsibilities, job duties, income, etc.
How can we continue to create value not only for our customers
but for our employees?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know both of us get asked as well if we would recommend going into business with a friend, family member, spouse, whatever else.
Partner in general.
Yeah.
It depends on a lot of factors. Personally, I would say I can't recommend it, but I can't not recommend it either.
Right.
Understanding that there could be a lot of disagreement, there could be a lot of conflict, but also understanding what the benefits are, and really knowing yourself and knowing your partner, whoever that is, whether it's a spouse or a family member or just a friend. Really understanding who you are as an individual and how you can communicate who you are to them, and then on their side, the partner side, making sure they understand who they are and how they can communicate it, and how both of you can come to an agreement, or all of you can come to an agreement. That if you can't do that, it's probably not going to work out.
Well, and I'd say this created going into business together, me joining Salina Septic Service. I mean, it's really helped create self-awareness for both of us, I think.
Yes.
And I think to go along with that, I mean, you can't force it. I mean, if it's not going to work, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to drive a wedge in between your friend, whatever, your partner.
A personal relationship because you put
easy,
business in it. Yeah.
Because it is easy to kind of put those two together.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned earlier, like you really need to try not to let business influence your personal. So again, with that self-awareness
yeah, self-awareness is huge. It's even more important. I mean, it's very important from an individual daily life perspective, whether you're running a business, whether it's just personally, it's extremely important. Probably one of the most valuable things about you can have is just being a human. But when you influence, or when you insert people and different environments and different relationships into a business aspect from a personal life, or from your personal life, having that self-awareness is absolutely critical. And making sure that you can communicate, who you are and how you want to do things, and coming to an agreement overall with the other parties. That is, I would say, if you can do that, you're probably going to have a great partnership. If you can't do that, it may not work out.
And that's fine. I mean, it's okay.
And it's okay that it doesn't work out. Yeah.
I mean, I think it just, it depends on you, depends on that other party. But I mean, yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, I'm excited it works for us. A lot of people, like we mentioned, they're just like, well, I could never do that, but
yeah.
So.
It's worked great, and I love it. I wouldn't change a bit. So we hope this episode was valuable.
Just
a little bit backstory
on
us.
Yeah.
So, and we do not know it all. Do not take this as advice necessarily. I mean, we kind of tried to cover both sides to it, the conflict plus the solution, and then how it also benefited us. We tried to cover all aspects of it, but it's going to be very situationally dependent. That's as much as we can say. It's going to depend on you. It's going to depend on situations and partners as to whether or not it would work for you. So, anyways, well, thank you for watching.
Well,
are we done?
Well,
We're wrapping up?
Yeah,
all
right.
right.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed. Remember, if you have any questions, concerns, leave them down below. We'd love to talk to you guys.
Yes, like, share, comment, please. We'd appreciate it greatly.
But yeah, other than that, we will see you guys next week.
Have a good one.